The Toronto Maple Leafs organization finds itself grappling with a harsh, undeniable reality as the NHL trade deadline looms. A debilitating 6-game losing streak has plunged the team into a state of crisis, forcing players, coach Craig Berube, and general manager Brad Treliving to confront difficult truths. This extended period of struggle, punctuated by their latest loss in Seattle against the Kraken on Thursday, has directly impacted their playoff probability and reshaped their strategic approach to the approaching deadline. The root cause, consistently cited by those within the organization, points to a pattern of costly mistakes and persistently poor defensive play that has undermined their efforts on the ice. This current losing streak marks the longest for the Maple Leafs since November 2019, evoking memories of past periods of significant organizational struggle and underperformance. The team's current standing in the league is precarious, as they now sit a substantial 10 points and 6 teams away from a wild card spot, a position that statistically grants them a mere 2.5% chance of making the playoffs. The recent road woes were preceded by a fruitless and punchless 0-4-1 homestand, a stretch of games that significantly shifted the management's perspective on the team's trajectory and immediate needs. A critical indicator of their defensive issues is the alarming statistic of allowing 136 goals at 5-on-5 this season, which tragically ranks as the highest in the entire league, underscoring systemic vulnerabilities. General manager Brad Treliving has openly acknowledged the different position the team occupies compared to previous seasons, a statement that strongly suggests a potential and perhaps drastic shift in their traditional trade deadline strategy. In preparation for potential moves, the team has strategically placed Dakota Joshua and Chris Tanev on the long-term injured reserve list. Additionally, Dakota Mermis was passed through waivers, actions that collectively have created valuable cap space. This newly available cap flexibility could be strategically utilized to acquire players with bad money in exchange for future assets, or to retain salary in outgoing trades, providing a crucial maneuverability in a challenging market. Key players, including star forward Austin Matthews and veteran defenseman Morgan Reilly, have publicly recognized the dire situation, emphasizing the urgent need for immediate improvement and greater accountability from every member of the squad. The internal recognition of the gravity of their predicament is a recurring theme in player interviews and team discussions. The pressure is mounting, not only from the fan base, but also from within the locker room, as the collective understanding solidifies that their current performance is unsustainable for a team with playoff aspirations. The decisions made in the coming days will undoubtedly shape the remainder of their season and potentially impact the long-term outlook of the franchise. The trade deadline, once viewed as an opportunity for enhancement, now feels like a critical juncture for survival, a moment of reckoning for a team that has consistently fallen short of expectations. The discourse around the team has shifted from hopeful anticipation to a more somber assessment of their fundamental issues, particularly on the defensive end. The coaching staff is reportedly re-evaluating schemes and player assignments, seeking a formula that can arrest the slide and inject some much-needed stability. The coming days will test the resolve and strategic acumen of the entire Maple Leafs organization. This internal recognition of the gravity of their predicament has become a recurring theme in player interviews and team discussions, underscoring a collective understanding that their current performance is unsustainable for a team with deep-seated playoff aspirations. The pressure is mounting significantly, not only from a passionate and often critical fan base, but also from within the locker room, as the collective understanding solidifies that their current trajectory is untenable. The decisions made in the coming days leading up to the trade deadline will undoubtedly shape the remainder of their season and potentially impact the long-term outlook of the entire franchise. The trade deadline, once viewed primarily as an opportunity for strategic enhancement and bolstering a competitive roster, now feels distinctly like a critical juncture for mere survival, a moment of profound reckoning for a team that has consistently fallen short of its own high expectations and those of its supporters. The general discourse surrounding the team has visibly shifted from one of hopeful anticipation and optimistic projections to a more somber and realistic assessment of their fundamental issues, particularly on the defensive end of the ice. This shift in narrative reflects a growing frustration with persistent systemic problems rather than isolated incidents. The coaching staff, led by Craig Berube, is reportedly engaged in an intensive re-evaluation of established schemes and individual player assignments, actively seeking a viable formula that can effectively arrest the current slide and inject some much-needed stability and confidence back into the team's play. The coming days will undoubtedly test the resolve, strategic acumen, and leadership capabilities of the entire Maple Leafs organization, from management down to the newest player. The focus on defensive liabilities is not merely anecdotal. It is supported by hard statistics that paint a stark picture. Beyond the 136 goals allowed at 5-on-5, a deeper dive into their analytical profile reveals further concerning trends. The team consistently ranks among the bottom third of the league in terms of expected goals against per 60 minutes at even strength, indicating that the quality of chances they concede is also unacceptably high. This metric suggests that their defensive structure is routinely breaking down, allowing opponents to generate high-danger scoring opportunities with alarming regularity. Furthermore, their shot suppression metrics, specifically shots allowed per 60 minutes, also place them at the lower end of the league, confirming that they are simply allowing too many pucks to reach their netminders. This consistent barrage places undue pressure on their goaltending tandem, contributing to a cycle of defensive struggle and diminished confidence. Compounding these issues, the Maple Leafs' penalty kill efficiency has also experienced a noticeable decline during this challenging period. While historically a strength, recent performances on the penalty kill have been inconsistent, allowing crucial power play goals against that often shift the momentum of games. This decline in a critical special teams unit further exacerbates their defensive woes, as opponents capitalize on their undisciplined play or execution errors. The combination of poor, even-strength defense and a struggling penalty kill creates a challenging environment for any team, particularly one with playoff aspirations. The mental toll of these struggles is also becoming increasingly apparent. Players, in post-game interviews, often reference a lack of confidence, an inability to execute under pressure, and a sense of frustration that permeates the locker room. This psychological aspect is as critical as the tactical deficiencies, as a team's belief in its system and its ability to win is paramount. Addressing these mental hurdles will be a significant challenge for the coaching staff and veteran leadership. The management's acknowledgement of a different position for the team suggests a departure from their previous approach, where the focus was often on acquiring offensive talent. This shift implies a more pragmatic, perhaps even sacrificial approach to the trade deadline, prioritizing defensive solidity and perhaps character over pure skill. This strategic pivot signals a recognition that the current formula is not yielding the desired results, and that fundamental changes are required to address the core issues plaguing the team. General Manager Brad Treliving acknowledges the different position the team is in compared to the past, indicating a potential shift in trade deadline strategy. This admission from Treliving signals a departure from previous deadlines, which often saw the Leafs as buyers, frequently sacrificing draft capital for immediate impact players. The current state, marked by a prolonged losing streak and dwindling playoff probabilities, necessitates a re-evaluation of priorities. The focus appears to be less on adding star power and more on addressing fundamental deficiencies, particularly on the defensive end. This strategic pivot suggests a pragmatic approach, potentially involving moves that prioritize long-term stability or cap flexibility over short-term high-risk acquisitions. To facilitate potential maneuvers, the team has placed Dakota Joshua and Chris Tanev on LTIR, and passed Dakota Mermis through waivers. These transactions, while seemingly minor, are critical in creating cap space, a valuable commodity as the trade deadline approaches. The strategic use of the long-term injured reserve allows teams to exceed the salary cap while a player is injured, providing flexibility for roster adjustments. Waiving Mermis also frees up a roster spot and a small amount of cap space, further enhancing the team's maneuverability. This accumulated cap space could be utilized in various ways. One potential application is to acquire players with bad money in exchange for assets. This scenario typically involves taking on a player with a higher cap hit than their on-ice value, often in exchange for draft picks or prospects from a team looking to shed salary. Such a move could bring in a useful player while also acquiring future assets, a strategy that aligns with a potential retooling rather than an aggressive push for a cup. Alternatively, the cap space could be used to retain salary in outgoing trades. If the Maple Leafs decide to move a player, retaining a portion of their salary can make them more attractive to potential trade partners, potentially yielding a better return in terms of assets. This dual utility of cap space underscores Treliving's measured approach, preparing for both buying and selling scenarios depending on market conditions and the team's continued performance. Players like Austin Matthews and Morgan Reilly recognize the dire situation, emphasizing the need for improvement and accountability. Matthews, a franchise cornerstone and one of the league's elite goal scorers, has publicly stated the team's need to look in the mirror and address their shortcomings. His comments reflect a growing understanding within the locker room that individual and collective performance must elevate if the team is to salvage its season. Reilly, an alternate captain and veteran defenseman, echoed similar sentiments, stressing the importance of consistent effort and adherence to the team's system. Such statements from key players indicate a shared recognition of the gravity of their predicament. Their calls for accountability suggest an internal push for change, which is crucial for any team facing adversity. The leadership group's acknowledgement of the issues is a necessary first step towards rectification, fostering an environment where players are expected to perform to a higher standard. The current environment within the Maple Leafs organization is one of introspection and strategic recalibration. The confluence of a prolonged losing streak, diminished playoff odds, and the looming trade deadline has forced management to confront uncomfortable realities. The traditional approach of aggressive buying at the deadline may no longer be viable or prudent. Instead, a more nuanced strategy, focused on addressing systemic issues and maximizing cap flexibility, appears to be taking shape. The actions taken to create cap space, coupled with the candid assessments from key players and the general manager, collectively point towards a period of significant evaluation and potential transformation for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The coming weeks will determine whether these adjustments lead to a much-needed turnaround or a more extensive retooling of the roster. The pressure on the entire organization to navigate this period effectively is immense, with the long-term trajectory of the franchise potentially hanging in the balance. The decisions made will undoubtedly shape the team's competitive outlook for seasons to come.